All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jesse Hill. I'm the president of Tier 3 IT Solutions, and I'm very happy to be joined today by Brandon Whip from Sophos. So for our clients that are on the call here today, you've seen the Sophos name. You know it from your VPN connections, from your endpoint protection, antivirus, that kind of stuff. And Sophos is one of our preferred partners. They are consistently rated as the top, in the different, areas that they provide cybersecurity services for. And we invited Brandon here today to talk to us a little bit more, not about Sophos specifically, but about what is Sophos seeing happen in the world of cybersecurity. So we're going to spend a little bit of time with him today. I did post a message in the chat that if you have any questions at all as we're going through, please use either the chat or the Q&A. I'm going to be moderating that, and then Brandon and I are going to just have a bit of a conversation about cybersecurity. And again, thank you for joining us. I hope it's really valuable use of your time. And with that, Brandon, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on here, Jesse. I appreciate it. And everyone on the call, welcome, and glad you could take the time out of your day for it. So I've been with Sophos for the last just over 3 years now as well too. I've worked with Jesse for the last 2 years now as well too. So we've been able to grow our relationship quite well. And I mean, it's a very corresponding relationship, which is great. It's us as the IT provider, work with our partners. We are 100% channel based. So we rely on our partners to help deliver what we have to offer and essentially share what is happening on with the world, what's going on, and everything else in between. Now, for those of you who actually don't know who Sophos is or anything else, we've been around for a very long time, and we are a security first vendor. We've been around since 1985. We started off in the UK, slowly migrated over. Now our headquarters is based out of the United States of America here out in Dallas. And how we look on a scale of what we're actually delivering is we've got over 500,000 customers. That's not end users, just customers globally. And now in the last 3.5 years, you may have heard the terminology managed detection and response, so MDR. We are the fastest growing MDR provider on the planet with a lot of different facets, different things that come through it. We've got over 14,000 companies in counting. I mean, this number has grown 600 in, I believe, December on that side of it. So this is where a lot of that security focus does come around to that. And a lot of that we're going to be talking about too. And then as well too, we've been named on the Gartner Magic Quadrant. If you have never heard of that, it's a third party set of eyes agnostically looking at what is happening in the industry, what vendors are where. And we've been on there for our endpoint product actually 14 years in a row. And even from our peer choice, we've been on there the last few years now. So like I said, it's not just us as salespeople telling you, hey, this is it. It's other people giving that validated and feedback from that side of it. So this is where we kind of stand as a company. And I mean, like you said, we are a security first vendor. Now, where we want to talk about today about what's actually going on in the world is what's happening kind of in our back door. So I know a lot of the times when we hear cybersecurity, it's these big companies being just absolutely hit and hammered by these multi-million-dollar ransomwares. There's something going on, they're locked out, all this nonsense that is happening. And I'm sure you've probably heard at least one, two, maybe a lot of these as well too, because these are kind of the big sexy ransomware attacks. Unfortunately, I hate to use that word, but it's the reality. This is what makes the news, and it's not really applicable to kind of possibly your business, what's happening, what's going on. But even on that side, I mean, these are very big names. I'm sure in the last couple of years, you've heard of the JBS packing plant, which their ransomware was millions and millions of dollars. The Colonial Pipeline was just kind of more of, hey, let's see if we can stop this system. And sure enough, they can. I mean, the Kaseya breach, sports fans, the Niners, I'm a Packers fan, so I can attest it was tough for me to even put this on my screen, but this was the reality that they got hit last year just around the Super Bowl time. Uber's always in the news, it seems like, and they don't seem to kind of step up their game. And then even Rockstar, not the energy drink, but the actual gaming company, has been hit too. And these are ones that they are big, high profile companies, but this doesn't really apply to you. And whether your business is a couple users, whether it's 20 users, 30 users, 200 users, these are companies that aren't going to actually make headlines, unfortunately, and for good reason too, because hey, it's you're getting hit by $10,000, you're getting hit by $20,000, and yeah, it's not as newsworthy essentially, but in all reality, this is what we deal with as cybersecurity professionals on a day-to-day basis on that. And this is where even if you just Google ransomware attacks within Canada, you will see a slew of articles saying, oh, this happened last week, this happened 2 weeks ago. And so if you actually look for it, you will see it a lot more. And the reason for that, and unfortunately this day and age, it used to be, hey, we're going to have our antivirus, we're good to go. It's going to block the attackers, block the hackers, they're not going to be able to get in, and you're fine. But honestly, these hackers are getting so technical and complicated that if they really want to get into somewhere, they will. It's just a matter of when. Yes, it may take them 5 years, 10 years, but if they really want to, that's where they can do it. And so when you have people with their hands on keyboards, you need that sort of defense. And security is definitely a 24/7, 365 job. And that's where our team assists with Tier 3 and Jesse Hill's team to be able to provide that full 24/7 coverage and support. Now, we hear about this kind of all the time with these small businesses who just put some antivirus on there thinking, hey, we're small, this isn't going to affect us. But that's so far from the truth, unfortunately, because what happens on that is that if a attacker comes through and they say, hey, you know what, we've got 10 organizations, we're looking at their spread, they are misconfigured, they don't have the proper settings in place, they don't have the proper security, these hackers can come in very seamlessly, go through that position, and then all of a sudden now they can stop all that information back and forth from you and your company and ask for, say, $10,000. Now, that may not seem like a lot compared to these multi-million-dollar ones, but the reality of this is the fact that you do this $10,000 over 10, 20 people, organizations, that adds up to a lot of money. And that's just kind of sitting ducks, unfortunately, on that. And so that's why on our side, Sophos, we want to inform people that, hey, it's not just these big companies that are getting hit. It's, we want to make sure that all these little companies that, as entrepreneurs like yourself, you're focusing on your company. You have admin stuff to do, you have the budgets, you have so many other things. And because security is so complicated and so technical, we want to be able to offload a lot of that from you guys so that you can focus on growing your business and not worry about, oh, am I going to get hit in the middle of the night, the evenings, the weekends, and then that's where we can come in to help.
Hey, Brandon,
Yeah,
I want to throw a little question at you here because it's
yeah, absolutely.
one of the things I talk about with our clients and prospects all the time is I
Yep.
tell them the challenge with cybersecurity is it's kind of like, imagine you have a building and you have this goal that nobody, only the people that you want in the building are going to get into the building.
Yep.
So you think about all these things, right? Okay, well, we're going to put up a wall around, the parking lot and a gate. The windows are all going to have bars, and you're going to have a thumbprint to open a door, and those types of things. But even when we're thinking about a physical thing like that, there's a hole. There's a way that people get in. Somebody leaves a window open, to get a fresh breeze. So one of the things that I talk about with our clients is I say, imagine you had 100 computers and 99 of them had the designated antivirus that we as the IT provider have prescribed.
Yep.
In your opinion, I mean, they've got 99 out of 100. Do they get a 99% score on their antivirus deployment, or do they get a 0?
Unfortunately, it's the latter on that side. And it only takes one person, one issue, one attack for this to come through. And I wish it were the case where, hey, this is foolproof, we've got 99% good, but it's not a test rating. This is where these attackers, they are beyond smart at this point. This is what they do for a living, and they reach out and they look to find that one vulnerability, no matter how small of crack it is. And with that vulnerability, that is where they can exploit the entire system. So unfortunately, I wish I had a better, more positive answer, and I don't want to be the pessimist
No,
out of the
no.
side, but that's just the
Yeah.
reality. And that's what they do.
It's tough, right? Because there's been lots of times where we sit with a client and we show them, and especially with a prospect, we show them a report and we say, hey, your setup is pretty good. And we use that exact scenario. We say, hey, you've got 25 computers and 22 of them have, the proper antivirus. So I flagged this as red. This is a high risk, high priority issue. And they're going, yeah, but it's only a couple computers. I'm like, yeah, well, if you get an infection, if you click a malicious link on one of those computers, it affects everything. So I'm glad to hear your perspective on that because I share
Yeah.
the view.
Yeah, it's truly the domino effect, and it's just the unfortunate reality of cybersecurity. It is changing not only kind of yearly, monthly, but honestly, it's daily. And even at this point too, I find no matter what news source you find, every morning when I come in, I always just do a quick scan on a bunch of local papers to say, hey, what happened last night? And a lot of the times too, it's really unfortunate that it's always holidays because they know everyone's out enjoying their time. They don't want to be working, obviously, 24/7, 365. And that's where a lot of that kind of offloading and work can be dealt to kind of our team to be able to assist and help out from that side. So it's just the nature of the beast at this point, right? So that's kind of where it ties in, and we try to educate as much as we can moving forward with everybody too. And so as we go forward a little bit further here, this is kind of the perfect quote. I won't read it out, but basically, cybersecurity is so complex, it is so technical, it is evolving so incredibly fast. There's just not the time or resources to do it unless you have a fully dedicated team 24/7, 365 who's able to do that, because you need to be within the know. And we always like to use that leapfrog approach. And what I mean by that is that all of a sudden we have come up with something brand new, very exciting. Hey, we've stopped all the hackers. Well, all of a sudden, probably 6 months, a year down the road, someone will figure out how to exploit it. They're going to jump ahead of us. And then, hey, you know what? Figured this. We're going to jump ahead of them. And this is unfortunately the reality with cybersecurity, that it is always a constant evolving position, and we always just need to stay on top of it to be able to get in front of it before it can hit and actually go from that next step. And this is from Gartner again, as I'd mentioned, where it's a third-party reliable source, and there's a ton of literature and follow-up we can send up with that side. Now, as we jump in a little bit further here, this is kind of where it dives in. And now these numbers may be a little bit different to possibly what you guys are used to, but this survey had come from about 5,600 IT professionals across 31 countries. And we also have just released now our Canadian version of this as well too. So it will be coming out very soon, which I can pass to Jesse, who can send this along as well too. But what is staggering and baffling, and this goes to your point, Jesse, here, that 59% of business were affected with ransomware last year. So you think about it, that's one small crack on one out of every two businesses, right? And so to have the proper settings, the proper security in place, that is really where it ties into the fact that, yes, you do need to have somebody looking over this all the time. It's not just a set it and forget it system where you can have that result in everything. And now, one of the big and few pictures that you need to really think about with this as well too, it's the fact that, okay, so yes, obviously if you do get hit with ransomware, it's not good, it's bad, but you also need to start thinking about the actual downtime that this can cause your business. Now, let's even use a simple example as manufacturing, we'll say. What'll happen if you have a manufacturing company that is working 24/7, 365, say you got 3 teams, 8-hour shifts, say you were down for a couple hours. Yes, that's not going to be good, but you'll probably get out of it. But if your whole system now is down for a week, 2 weeks, what does that now look like in effect of your shipping, your billings, who can actually work, who are you paying for? And to actually put a real dollar value on the fact that, hey, you know what, as a preventative measure, if we were to be hit, let's think about having an action plan in place to say, okay, what does this look like? What is our incident response plan of action help, and where can we kind of fill those holes and navigate to make sure this doesn't actually happen to us. And so these are little things to put a dollar value on your business and how many employees you have, and how can that affect not only yourself, your company, and your employees, and whether their capacity to be able to work well is going through. And from that survey that we've done, it was over a month for the actual downtime at the end of the day for a lot of these companies, that they were still dealing with repercussions, not alone having either your IT team still working with this, dealing with this. It's staggering numbers when you actually look at it. And realistically, it's usually the fact that when somebody starts thinking about this more, it's they've either happened to themselves or it's happened to somebody they know, and they're like, oh my goodness, we need to start actually taking this a little bit more seriously. And that's where definitely we can come in and educate that situation moving forward from it. Now, as we go along here, these are things that we want to be able to kind of address about how to stop this coming through. And this kind of alludes that I feel like Jesse had set me up perfectly for almost all of these slides with what he had just said. I promise he wasn't planned, everybody, but it did work out very well. And again, the number one point is just making sure that you have defenses on all your environment. And again, that's basically having a full health check, making sure that everything is properly in place. There's no issues, there's no concerns. And when you are getting email alerts, you're getting questions, you're getting concerns, you address that. You just don't say, hey, I'm going to pass this along, because it really is a shared ecosystem of not only from a vendor to a partner to an end user. It's everybody really needs to take onus on what is happening and what is going on from that side of it here.
Yeah, and Brandon, you alluded to it as well, that cybersecurity is changing daily, right? And the reason I bring up the question that I did, and it's funny because I didn't even know you had this on here, but number one is that there are certain things in life that as an example, if we take the dishes out of the dishwasher and we put them in the cabinets and we leave the house for a week, when we come back, those dishes are going to be where we left them, and it's going to be exactly the same as we expected. With technology, we could go and we could install, a certain, antivirus on all the computers today and then leave for a week. And when we come back, things will have changed. It could have changed because there was a new vulnerability detected out in the wild that, you need an update to protect from. It could be that somebody, inadvertently disabled, an antivirus because they were doing some testing. It could be, a malicious, tool found a different vulnerability that allowed it to uninstall or disable something. And so while it sounds so simple to say, hey, we just need to have antivirus, on all of our stuff. Well, guess what? There is no such thing as a set it and forget it. It has to be, monitored, and there has to be procedures and processes in place to, like Brandon was saying, to alert you and notify you when something doesn't meet that threshold that you've set for it anymore.
And that's exactly right. And that's where even now too, as we start, without getting too technical into everything, where we kind of started off with security is, hey, it's a set it and forget it. You've got your basic antivirus on. Probably everyone knows when you buy a new computer, it's got McAfee or Norton or Windows Defender. Now, one of those ones that say, hey, you need to update for $50 a year or whatever, right? As kind of menial as that is, it's still very important on that. But now where security has actually gone and kind of the different levels of it is when in number 3 here, where it says harden your environment, the XDR tool. Now what security is evolving for is that you've got your set it and forget it antivirus. That's great. That's what you need as the backbone, the staple of your protection. But now what's happening is we are giving you essentially tools to be able to fight off these attackers and proactively search. So if somebody is lying dormant in your system, with these tools, you can now look in and see what's happening, see what's going on. And now the next step from there, which we'll get into in a little bit here, is our managed detection and response. And now this is where we have a fully trained team of individuals who are doing this on your behalf, 24/7, 365, all the way around the globe. So what is happening is our team is going through all of our customers, making sure that we don't see any anomalies, we don't see any issues, any red flags that is happening. And if we do see that, we're going to nip that in the butt before it even becomes a problem. And that is the biggest position that we want to come across is that we are going to stop this before it becomes a full incident response scenario, when it is all hands on deck in that side, where our team is going to be saying, hey, we've seen some weird activity, we're going to stop this, let's go investigate it, and be like, oh, this had the potential to be very bad, let's see how it got in, let's investigate and go from there. And that's really where our company can assist and come through with Tier 3 to be able to offer and lend that 24/7, 365 support and coverage all the way through on that. So there's a lot going on from that MDR side of it. And then a couple other just smaller pieces to the puzzle here is with, as I had mentioned earlier, is have an incident response plan, even with the coverage. If something, worst case, knock on wood, were to happen, what does that plan of attack look like? And I would recommend writing this down on a piece of paper, in a notebook, and not having it on your system, because that has happened before, where if a ransomware attack did happen, you're locked out of that as well too. And you can't really go back to the attacker and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Attacker, can we just have that one file? It's got our incident response plan. We need help, right? So just little things like that to be able to go through. And that's something as well too that Jesse can have those conversations with you, again, to heighten up that security posture and kind of build forward from that too.
Well, I was going to say, cyber incidents, right, mean a lot of different things, not just ransomware, not just hackers. I'm in this peer group, and so I've got 9 other IT business owners all around the world that we chat with and share ideas and collaborate with. And one of them out in New York on Tuesday was dealing with an outage at one of his client sites, and that outage was because they had a parting of ways with somebody who had administrative rights on their network, and he was quite upset about having to leave. And so he just went in and decided to, delete a whole bunch of stuff. And so they ended up with a significant outage because of a malicious insider, right? And so insider threats are, also something that you need to plan for when you think about this cyber incident response plan. And we haven't talked about it with everybody yet, but we're actually planning on running a cyber incident response seminar, essentially, probably in about May, and helping you develop these plans, because they're very important, very useful.
Yeah, and it's just covering your basis at the end of the day, right? And it's just making sure, obviously you never want to use it, but in that situation, in that active incident, whatever may be happening, you're ready, you're prepared, and you know what to do at the end of the day, right? And that's where a lot of it can kind of tie into it. And so not only the fact that, like you said, these top tips to kind of help improve that posture as well too, but a lot of things that are moving forward too is around compliance. And if you're in the healthcare industry, a legal firm, finance, whatever the case may be, a lot of different governing bodies have different areas that, hey, you need to withhold to these regulations. And that may tie in with cyber insurance. It may tie in with even having just additional pieces of the puzzle where, hey, that set it and forget it is not enough. And it's like, we require you to have some sort of EDR, so endpoint detection and response, or extended detection and response tool. And that is where we had mentioned with, hey, the building's on fire, we're going to give you the fire truck and the hose, but you guys got to put it out. And if you want the MDR service, hey, we're going to provide the firemen and women to go along with that as well too. So these are things that just to think about too from an insurance perspective. Hey, it's going to bring my premium down, but also it's going to make me sleep comfortably at night, where I'm not going to have to worry on Christmas Eve, am I getting hit, or is anything else happening from that side, right? So lots to consider. And I mean, I know we're throwing a lot at you here, but like you said, if some of these trigger words do come into play, let us know. We're happy to have a longer conversation about this later on as well too. Now, this is where I know we've kind of covered a lot of this already as we do start talking about everything from that side of it, but this is why businesses actually need a full managed detection and response service. And we've covered a lot of this, but the main thought of this is that we want to be doing everything as proactively as we possibly can. And that's where our managed detection and response team comes in to assist and help out. We are searching, we are finding these vulnerabilities within the system, making sure that we have that proper security hygiene and there's no holes within it to get yourself vulnerable from that. Now, What's really neat about our service too, though, is the fact that not only are we doing that proactive side, but we do a full incident response piece with the coverage that you have. There's no additional retainers, there's no additional extra costs. Everything is tied into one bubble. So at worst case scenario, if something were to actually happen, our team is going in with hands-on keyboards. We have an incident response lead person that is going to be coming through and actually actively fighting that hacker off, because when someone has hands-on keyboards they're attacking, you need that to defend. Otherwise, people are very smart. They're going to get around those logical playbooks and they're going to know what's happening, what's going on. But if you have human on human and you've got a team of 500 individuals going against this one person, we're going to win. We're going to help out and we're going to go through that. And we're going to bring that back to that green state health status. And that's really what we want to get that outcome out of it, right? So there's so many different avenues. And I mean, again, we're just kind of scratching the surface, giving you the high level points of view, but it's basically providing you at this point 24/7 coverage, 365. You're proactively threat hunting. There's no additional costs, retainers, fees from that side. And we're going to make sure that you do stay safe throughout the day, the evenings, and the holidays.
Yeah, and we've got over here the 51 days, and in the world of cybersecurity, right? We've talked a lot about ransomware today. The reason that attackers remain undetected is that the smart ones build intelligence and they build a profile around the organization that they're going after, because there are certain businesses that if they lost their file server for a day or 10 days or a month, it doesn't affect them that much. They can work around that. But there are other those same businesses, they might have some type of proprietary information that's being traded by email. And so they'll try to target that instead. And so the threat hunting is something that I would say is relatively new in the small and medium business space. And it's very complex. When you think about all the different versions of operating systems and software packages that are installed and integrations, and it's a lot, which is why Brandon's talking about the fact that this is all Sophos does, is focus on how can they proactively improve the security of those organizations.
And that's right. And I've got a slide here that will show truly the complexity of security at even just a high level to understand it from that side. And I'll show that in just a few slides here. And I know we're running a little short on the other side. And again, but this is kind of where I already jumped ahead and we've kind of bounced around a little bit, but got that main message, a point. But the biggest thing that we're trying to do for our customers, our partners, is the fact that you are running a business. You're an entrepreneur. You are trying to do the bookkeeping. You're trying to run your team. You're doing everything that you need to focus on building that. The last thing you need to do is try to spend now more time, energy, and effort into something that is beyond complex. I mean, I had my own business for 10 years ago, and security was the last thing on my mind. I didn't even question it at that point. But even now, talking with and understanding, it has just become so complex and tough to really comprehend from that side. This is where, like you said, it's leaning to Tier 3, Jesse, ourselves, to be able to just let you focus on your business, because it's a 24/7 job, and your business is a 24/7 job. And that's where we want to be able to help you build that comfortably and confidently to be able to actually have that. And even if you have an IT team, then you're kind of leaning on Tier 3, that's still only one person, where Jesse and his team is still a full team, and then our team, even bigger team. And it's a very shared relationship that we want to be able to help and grow and build on that, so that you can focus on your business at hand on that side.
Yeah, I like that community immunity line on there. Quite frankly, that's one of the benefits that we, if I was a client looking at an IT service provider like us, I mean, one of the things we bring to the table is we're working with a whole bunch of other businesses, and we're seeing what's working, what isn't working, what problems they're having, how we can solve them. And we're always thinking to ourselves, well, we've been asked 4 or 5 times about this across different clients. can we automate it? Can we script it? Can we, do something proactively so that these other 40 or 50 businesses don't have that problem? And then Sophos is taking it to a global level where they're looking across, all of those, 500,000 businesses that they support, and, all of the data that they're getting. And again, coming back and saying, okay, well, what are we learning, from that incident over here that we can, apply to protect everybody else, better. And, to Brandon's point of, hey, he gets up and, likes to check and see what happened in the world overnight. Every week I get an email from Sophos that says, these are the improvements that we've made. And it is an extensive list. The different things that they are identifying, researching, and developing, protections for every single week. So yeah, it's a big deal, that community immunity.
Yeah, it is very complex at the end of the day, right? Where everybody is doing everything and it's just not possible. And this is where, especially in today's talent pool, right? We are hiring all over the globe these trained individuals to threat hunt. This is what they do day in, day out. And even a lot of companies who have a security operations center. So what I mean by that is they have an internal team. They're doing what Sophos has, but on a small scale internally. You need at least 5 to 8 people doing this. And that's not to mention sick time, downtime, holidays, you name it, everything else in between. And it is so expensive to be able to do that, where we are hiring these people on a grand scale to be able to monitor this. So we are training these individuals. They are getting the education, the know-how, the whereabouts to do this. And this is what they do day in and day out, and they love it. I mean, it's looking at screens every day, seeing what's happening, what's going on. I'm on the sales side. I will be the first to admit that they go into a lot of this detail and it's over my head. And it's insane. It really blows your mind how cool and intricate a lot of this is, but it is a little bit scary at that point too. And that's where, like you said, you need that expert team. You need them to have the know-abouts, the where-how to be able to do all this, and having the right technology behind it from that side. And when we start talking about the technology side, and I'll wrap it up here in a couple of minutes, everybody, but this is the Sophos lineup. Now, I know most of you rely on Jesse and Tier 3 to be able to do a lot of the security stuff on your behalf, and some of you may have some access to it, but this is our adaptive cybersecurity ecosystem. We call this our A slide. Now, it's a lot on this. It is very overwhelming. There's a lot on it, but this is all the products that Sophos has to offer. So when we think about security as a whole, it is not just endpoint. It is not just firewalls. Now we are tying into the fact that your mobile devices can have security on it. We've got different modalities where you can use encryption. So what I mean by that is that we have an extra set of eyes on your laptop to be able to actually log in and make sure that that's happening. We've got switches, we've got zero trust network. And what I mean by that is for VPN. So actually being able to sign into your computer security. We've got access points, so for additional security for wireless. We've got email security awareness training, so training your individuals on what's happening, what's going on, email filtering, scanning, a 24/7 SOC, security operations center, and all of this and all of these products are pooled into what is our data lake and our Sophos Labs team. So they're taking and they're ingesting all we have from these 500,000 customers and seeing what's happening on a day-to-day basis. So when you think about security, the complexity of everything, this is why it is so complex, because it's not just simple anymore. It has gone far beyond what you can really internalize and think of what's going on. And honestly, this is why we rely on a lot of our partners to be able to help educate their customers and us to help educate from that side, and vice versa. It's a cohesive relationship at the end of the day. And this is where really we are at, and happy to do these webinars with Jesse and his team as well too. So I mean, if you do have further questions, like you said, we're happy to answer them. You need more resources, anything else, let us know. We're happy to help. And that is the last of it for me, Jesse.
All right. Yeah. And, one of the things, and he touched on it, a couple times about Sophos, building their team, focusing on security. And I mean, if you read the news, one of the things in the news that I read is talking about the fact that there is a shortage of trained cybersecurity professionals. Not only that, but there's a shortage of training programs to create enough of these cybersecurity professionals. So I think what most businesses are going to find over the next 5, 10, 15 years is that you will not be able to do cybersecurity for yourself, even with the idea of, hey, we're going to get 4, 5, 6, 8 people in-house. I mean, you'd have to be a pretty significant organization to make that commitment. But at the same time, it just doesn't make sense. Why would you pay 5 cybersecurity people when Sophos has hundreds or thousands of cybersecurity people that are developing those tools and sharing them, for a price? I mean, they're sharing them with their customers, right? And quite frankly, even IT providers. I mean, it's not feasible for the typical, small medium business like ourselves to be able to develop this. They're doing it much faster, and they'll do a much better job than any of us small businesses would be able to do. So, Brandon, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that. We do have the chat and the Q&A open here. So as I've mentioned a couple of times, if you have any questions that you want to talk about today, feel free to post them in there. If there's anything that came up today that you want to talk to us about or learn more about, shoot me an email, and we'll be happy to get you the information, connect with you, do a walkthrough, whatever the case may be. But I'm not seeing anything come in the Q&A, so I guess we'll just say thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Brandon, for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And for everybody on the call, we'll close it out, and we'll connect with you soon.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day, everyone.